Hello everyone. I welcome you once again. This is Dr. Kajal Bojwani and today I am here to talk about an important teaching learning pedagogy, experiential learning, which is the need of the hour. Tell me and I'll forget, show me and I'll remember, involve me and I'll understand. This is a famous Chinese proverb. The concept of experiential learning also rests upon the same premises. It states that if we tell somebody something, it may be forgotten in a few days' time. If we show somebody something, it may last in their minds for a longer period of time. However, if we involve somebody in doing something, the understanding lasts forever. Experiential learning is a well-known education which was introduced by David Cope, J. William Pfeffer, and John Jones. It was propounded in the early 80s. It is also known as what, so what, and now what method. It is known as Kolb's experiential learning theory. This theory states that knowledge cannot be poured upon students, but it can be created through experience. It also underlines that knowledge is a result of combining transforming experience with the theoretical aspects of learning, which they have grasped earlier. As we have already discussed that there are different learning styles which were depicted in the earlier session and popularly known as VARK model. V stands for visual learners, A stands for auditory learners, R stands for reader types, and K stands for kinesthetic learners. And research proves that every learner has his own preference and learns best when he embraces his preferred learning mode. Experiential learning, thus, is designed to engage students' emotion as well as enhancing their knowledge and skills. Under this method, the learner plays an active role in the learning process, thereby leading to greater gratification in learning. Experiential learning is a continuous cycle that takes a learner from me to we, from individual to team, to world, and back to better me. The idea is that greater learning and meaning can come from any experience, and the main important thing in experiential learning is that you need time to reflect upon it. Learning through doing, experiencing it in different situation and then reflecting upon it and trying to synthesize it and apply it in real life is what experiential learning focuses on. Experiential learning entails a hands-on approach to learning that moves away from just the teacher at the front imparting and transferring the knowledge to students. It makes learning an experience that moves beyond the classroom and strives to bring a more evolved way of learning. Let us understand Kolb's learning cycle. Kolb has given a very excellent model of learning. According to Kolb, the first step how learners learn is through abstract conceptualization. Abstract conceptualization is also known as learning by thinking. This is a critical base which we give to the students. The students are being told something, they think upon it, they conceptualize it, but it is very abstract in nature in the sense that there is no practical orientation given about it. For example, when we say the sun is so far away, so and so million kilometers far away from the earth, the students can only think it, but they cannot imagine, they cannot see, they cannot experiment about it. So they can only understand that sun is a hot ball of fire or it is also a star, but then how does it look like when you talk about actual sun or other planets in the sky? Such kind of experimentation or such kind of actual experience is to the students. When we talk about, say for example, when we talk about the reproduction in the plants, or when we talk about the habitation or anything. This is merely an abstract concept which is being implanted in the minds of the students. However, he goes a step further and talks about the active action stage. Now, this is a stage wherein the students are allowed to learn by doing. This gives them somewhat more experience than somewhat more understanding of the concept, because they learn by doing. So when we say how does a plant grows, when the student grows, the students can actually understand it by actually planting the seeds, watering them, seeing what is the right amount of the nutrients being put for them, the sunlight, and accordingly they can see that in how many days does the plant grows, and so on. So that becomes active experimentation. The third stage, what Coles talks about, is concrete experience. Now, the active experimentation stage gives some hands-on experience to the student, whereby they learn by doing. But what goes in wrong there, what goes out correctly there, cannot be understood by them until and have been mentored at every stage. For example, when they sow a seed, if it does not turns out to be growing into a plant, so where does it went wrong? Whether the amount of sunlight or the amount of water being given to them was not sufficient, or maybe there was some other reason. They would fail to understand it unless they are being mentored by somebody at every stage. So through their experience, through the mentorship, they understand that if the seeds are sown, if they are being given water, or if they are being given sunlight, it is not sufficient for the plants to grow. Every plant would have a different way. Hence, there would be some plants which would grow when they do this experiment, and there would be some which wouldn't. So through experience, they can understand that the same theory cannot be applied everywhere. Similarly, if we have learnt about something, maybe our attitudes or maybe our perception towards certain things, it may or may not hold true at all stages or at all walks of life, because everything is dependent upon a situation. So, learning by experience gives the student an understanding of what they have learnt by doing and what they have learnt by thinking. So, thinking gives them an abstract ideation and doing gives them an hands-on experience. But the concrete experience gives them an understanding that how things take place, similar things take place, or similar things respond differently, similar stimuli respond differently in different situations, maybe with respect to time, with respect to place, with respect to different kind of environment, so on, which can be applied in every walk of life, maybe personal, maybe psychological, maybe sociological, or we can talk about scientific, education, and any aspect of our life. Similarly, Coates talks about the fourth observation, or we can say the fourth level of learning, which is called as reflective observation. Now, learning by thinking gives us an abstract ideation. It gives us the theoretical knowledge. Experimentation gives us a base by doing. Concrete experience is sought by doing the same thing, facing the same situation again and again, or doing the same thing in different situations again and again, thereby experiencing the difference. But why does this difference exist, and how can we make it do it in our favor, or how can we correct the situations, or how can we bring the desired results? All these things required an introspection. All these things require a reflection. This reflection upon what we have already done is basically a thought process which goes into whatever process we have followed, synthesizing everything and critically analyzing everything, and then reflecting upon what went how. Thus, Kolb's learning theory, Kolb's learning cycle talks about four basic factors. One is abstract conceptualization. The second one is active experimentation. The third one is concrete experience, which is experiencing learning. And the fourth one is reflective observation, which is learning by synthesizing, by critical analyzing, and basically by reflecting upon our experiences so far. Now, let us look at the second diagram. The second diagram tells us about, again, the second diagram is also divided into four quadrants. If you look at the diagram, it is divided into two two sides. If you look at one arrow, it says do first. On the left hand side, you can see it is written do first, and on the right hand side, it is written watch first. Now, if you look at the first quadrant, it says why. Why do I need to know this, or where will I use this? The second quadrant talks about what. What is the main idea? The third quadrant talks about how. Does it work? How do I fix it? And the fourth quadrant talks about what if. What if we tried it in a different way? What if the situations were different? Now, all these four quadrants can be related with the four parts of the Kolb's learning cycles, the four quadrants of the Kolb's learning cycle. If we talk about abstract conceptualization, that is learning by thinking, that is the first step. Why? Why do we need to know that? Where will I use this? The experimentation part says what is the main idea. Now, whatever we have learned, we now need to know what is the main idea behind it. So we learn about lot of theories like photosynthesis and this and that. If you talk about the terminology in plants, or I talked about astronomy, or if you talk about physics, chemistry, geography, in all these subjects, we learn about certain concepts. Or if you talk about English as such, we talk about the various parts of speech, the tense. So that is the first basic abstraction what we give to the students. But then when the students start thinking about it, they try to question themselves. They try to question the teachers, what is the main idea? Now they start applying this. So when we teach a child A for apple, he starts applying it. When he sees an apple, he says that yes, this is an apple. So that is what is the main idea. And this comes from watching. Then comes how does it work? So this comes from experience. So when we teach a child that the apple is red in color, or the apple can be cut in 2 parts or in 4 parts, and these are the seeds in an apple, or when we cook an egg, it becomes hard this way, or it becomes boiled this way, or anything like that, it will tell the child how does it work. Right? So experience will tell him or her. Similarly, when we talked about the example on growth of a plant, right? So it actually tells the child how does a seed gets converted into a plant, how does it grows into a plant, how does it transforms into a plant. And then what if now the child understands that when we put a seed, it grows into a plant, and the plant gives us plant grows into a big tree, or so on, and then it bears. In case of plant, it may bear fruits. In case of trees, it may bear in case of plants, it may bear flowers. In case of fruits, it may bear fruits, and so on. Trees, it may bear fruits. Now the child can think about the same situation in a different way, right? Now if I talk about what if we tried it in a different way. So if I told you that if the same thing does not works out, say for example, if you put the seeds of a particular sprout in one jar, and the another sprout or another particular seeds in another jar, both of them may not have the same cycle of growth. So now the child understands that what if it is done in a different way. So if the water is put more, or if the sunlight being given to them has different amounts of sunlight or heat or something, how do they react differently? So what if the situations were different? Now, as we grow up, as we mature, we try to apply these theories, or try to apply these experiences in different walks of life. So now I try to experiment it in my personal life. So what if I grow a seed of kindness? Does it bear fruit of kindness around, happiness around, growth around, prosperity around, or what? Similarly, if I sow a seed of hard work, does it gives me the tree of success? Similarly, the child can. So similarly, if I invest 1 rupee today, right? So what will it give me after 5 years or after 10 years if I keep on investing, if I keep on saving it in the same manner, or maybe multiplying it, or something like that. So all these theoretical implications, the experiences, the learnings by doings, and when the child or when anybody like us reflects upon it, it refers to, or it gives us an application based theory, the doing based theory, which is called as Kolb's theory. So this was what the Coates talked about in his learning cycle. We can understand Cole's experiential learning cycle more with the help of this picture. Now, on the right, it is written that it's an application-based learning. So, Coates basically talks about learning, terms learning as an experiential and application-based cycle. He says that it is an endless learning process. The teachers put an impression. It is a process of impression and expression. By impression, I mean to say that the teachers put an impression upon the students in the form of the theory or the concepts, what are being impressed upon their minds. We try to inculcate in them what all we have learned, all are the important concepts or terminologies about a particular subject, and then the student express themselves in the form of, the students can express it in the form of learnings. Cole says that it's an endless recurring process, but he says that experience is necessary for learning, and he says that brain is built up for experiential learning. There may be different learning styles, and these learning cycles are basically based upon, or we can say that there are different ways of going around the learning cycles. There are precepts and concepts which motivate us to learn. We cannot merely learn by experience, but basically the theories are also important. So we have to have some concepts and the perception about it. And when we challenge that perception, when we actively look deeper into we dig into those particular concepts, those particular theories, we try to challenge them. We understand that what is right, what is wrong, what is relevant, what is irrelevant, what goes along, what has to be discarded, and so on. However, he says that the full cycle learning takes place only when the learning is facilitated to all. That means there are different types of learners, as we spoke about earlier, and holistic learning can be attained when we understand each and every person's learning style and give them the appropriate learning environment and the learning methodology. And when it takes place, backed with the experience, the application-based learning in real terms take place. So let us look at the picture. If you look at the picture given over here, there are the 4 stages, which are 4 cycles, the four tools or 4 basic steps in the cycle which are mentioned here. The abstract conceptualization, in which we can see a picture wherein we are being taught about certain concepts like hypothesizing, estimating certain things, planning, etc. Now, if we look at active experimentation, so before we go to active experimentation, we need to understand that these are the concepts, these are the things like estimating certain things. Say, for example, 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters to 1000 meters, and so on and so forth, was never known to us. So, unless and until we know this, for example, when we talk about the number line, we know that there are numbers, the positive numbers on the right side of the scale, and the negative numbers on the left side of the number line, 0 in the middle. All these concepts of positive numbers, negative numbers, negative numbers, 0, integers, and this and that, whole numbers, these were never been known to us. So we cannot talk about experimenting with them. We cannot talk about experience here unless and until we know the theory. So theory is the base, right? So we never knew about what planning is. We never knew what estimation is all about. We never knew how can we hypothesize something. We never knew how can we calculate profit, losses, and anything what we have learned so far. So all these things are basically the abstract conceptualization. If you look at the picture, there is active experimentation. Now, in the picture, we can see that a child is experimenting with the weights on one side and on the other side. So, or for example, when we talk about a seesaw, so we need equal weights on either sides in order for the seesaw to be moving along. Right? So he experiments. So if he keeps more weight on one side, he cannot move the seesaw, which is being shown here. So he does it by doing. When he does it in and out with different sources at different points of time with different tools, he experiences something. So playing, moving around, developing some theories, developing some context from what we have learned is what concrete experience is. right? And on the basis of this, we watch, we record, we make new games, we make new theories, we make instruments, and whatever are the inventions of today, whatever new discoveries we see today, whatever new things have been made, it is all result of the experience. If we talk about an iPad, or if we talk about the Android, or if we talk about whatever new what we have today, it is all the result of the concrete experience what is in hands of these people who were at one point of time experimenters. And finally, we talk about reflective observation. Now, you have learnt about some concepts, you try to experiment with those concepts, you gain some experience out of it, you started making use of those experiences, but things may not work out in the same way. So, we need to reflect, we need to think about them, we need to write them down, we need to synthesize these ideas, we need to connect the dots and gaps, and that is what is called as reflective observation. So there are certain things, as Cole says, we can learn by synthesizing, there are certain things we can do by observing, and there are certain things we can actually learn by doing. So learning is what is termed over here as active experimentation and experience, whereas learning by observation or learning by observing is what is here signified as abstract conceptualization and reflective observation. Based on the Kolb's learning cycle, we have four main learning styles. The first learning style is the convergent learning style, the second one being accommodative learning style, the third divergent learning style, and the fourth one is assimilating learning style. Let us understand them one by one. The first one is convergent learning style. The convergent learner is the one who combines abstract conceptualization and active experimentation. Under this learning style, the learner first understands or takes up what is abstract concepts, and then he tries to experiment those concepts. Such a learner who believes in taking up the concepts first and experimenting upon them has what is called as convergent learning style. Second learning style is accommodative learning style. An accommodative learner is the one who believes in or who compounds active experimentation and builds upon his concrete experience. So he is the one who believes in doing everything rather than merely trusting the concepts, rather than merely holding the concepts in his mind. So he experiments with what is being taught to him and he tries to apply it in different ways under different circumstances, which gives him concrete experience. Such a learner is called as an accommodative learner. The third style, called as a diverging learning style, is a combination of two main types of learnings. One is concrete experience and the other one is reflective observation. A divergent learner feels that only experience is not sufficient. Why does a particular thing does not respond in the same way? Why do things always do not remain in the same way? Why do they change with time? Why do they change with situation? Why do they change with seasons? And so on are what are the questions what monger the minds of divergent learners. And thus, the divergent learner reflects upon what he experiences. He tries to write it down, he tries to think upon it, he tries to talk about it, and basically we can say that he synthesizes what all he has experienced. He critically questions himself and his experiences and tries to bring reflections upon what he has learned, and then he tries to relate it with the real life problems and tries to solve them through his reflections. Such a learner is called as the divergent learner. The fourth style is the assimilating learning style. Here, the learner believes in abstract conceptualization and reflection of his concepts. So he learns some concepts and then he starts thinking about them, synthesizing those concepts. Of course, here he does not works upon those concepts. He may not learn by doing, or he may not experiment upon them, but he tries to understand the concepts by thinking about them, by reflecting upon them. So these are the four learning styles. We cannot say that a particular learning style is better than the other. As in normal terms, we saw the VARK model, which states about the visual learners, the auditory learners, the kinesthetic learners, and the reader type learners. So we cannot say which one is a better one. Everybody has a different preferred mode of learning style. Similarly, here also, when we talk about a convergent learner, he thinks more about, or he agrees more upon the active experimentation along with the concepts, whereas an accommodator is more of experimentation and experience, whereas a divergent learner builds upon his experiences and reflection, whereas an assimilating learner may assimilate knowledge from abstract concepts and tries to reflect upon it for a long time before he actually applies it. So these are the four different learning styles, and depending upon every individual, it is the duty of every teacher to understand the particular learning style of the student and accordingly facilitate learning to them so as to mentor that student effectively and see that the actual learning, the practical learning, the application based learning takes place. Now that we have understood the concept of experiential learning, its model, let us now understand its benefit at length. Experiential learning has multiple benefits. Basically, the word experiential learning comes from giving experience. So, students can experience the real world even before they actually try to deal in the real world. For example, when we teach students chemistry or physics, or any subject for that reason, we just give them the theory. But the experiential learning may give them the chances to interact with the chemical environment. Students who have a desire to become business people will have the opportunity to experience the managerial position. So interaction with the people at that level, or giving them an internship, or giving them a mentor like that, will give them an experience of how the situations are, how to handle those situations, or what all it takes to be a successful manager, and so on. Thus, it improves the on-the-job performance as well. Now, if we talk about, for example, if we talk about a bus driver. So, a bus driver can be given just a classroom training into how to drive, right? But when he is being taught to drive, when he is being trained via high fidelity simulation training, it will enable significant decrease in the accidents. He will understand the traffic problems and fuel consumption in a better manner if he is being made to understand all these things through simulation training rather than just giving him the classroom or theoretical training. Similarly, experiential learning hosts an opportunity for creativity. There would be a boom of opportunity for creativity because there's always more than one solution for a problem in the real world. So when students think upon, when they reflect, when they try to relate things in and out, they will have a better chance to learn that lesson which they get to interact with real life experience, and that learning will go with them lifelong. That will help them to apply those learnings in their real life situations as well and handle the problems in a more effective manner. Now comes the actual utility of this theory to us. How do we teach our students application based learning? Because ultimately, whatever we learn, it is all about how we can make our teaching effective. Now, there are 5 stages to it. 1, experience. 2nd, sharing. 3rd, process. 4th, generalize. And 5th, apply. Now, the first one is experience the activity. Perform. Do it. Now, when we talk about anything, for example, imagine you're teaching students drawing. Can you just teach them drawing by giving them directions? Draw a straight line and then do this and then do this and then an aeroplane will be drawn. Unless and until they draw it, they would not be able to understand what this actual drawing is about. So, The real application-based learning takes place when the activity is actually performed. So do the activity before being told or shown how. The second one is share. What do we need to share? We need to share the results, the reactions, the observation. Describe the experience and or your reaction. Now, this will take place only when we have hands on experience. For example, when a student is being told to draw an apple, he will draw the apple. So if we just tell him that we have to draw a C this side and the C that side and that makes an apple, it will not actually result into him understanding how to draw. He may understand, but he may not be actually doing it. But when he acts it, he understands that what it takes to draw an apple. So now once he draws an apple, now when he shares the results, he will. Here are some examples how we can adopt experiential learning in classrooms. There are various activities which are mentioned over here for schoolers, such as video game based learning, cross age peer tutoring, student generated test question activity, fishbowl activity, and pros and con grid. Here the students can
teach each other through cross-age peer tutoring. Similarly, the students can generate question tests, and those question tests can be given in a parent share kind of games. Fishbowl activity, where the students can be divided into two groups. One of the group could discuss a particular topic, whereas the other group would observe and reflect upon it. And then the second group will discuss a particular topic. The first group would be told to reflect upon it. Such kind of activities will not only help the student to understand the discussion and different perspectives, but they would also get an opportunity to reflect upon what the other people are thinking, and accordingly they can develop the thinking ability and reasoning ability. Similarly, mnemonics can be an activity wherein the students can memorize their points with the help of some kind of symbols. For example, if we have to make small children learn the colors of the rainbow, say for example, so in that case we can tell them to remember Vibjor, which every letter stands for a particular color. For example, V refers to violet, and I refers to indigo, B refers to blue, and so on. So similarly, for every kind of question and the related points, they can make mnemonics, which would be a fun also, and it would be easier for the students to remember as well. Students can be divided into two groups, and they could be divided into pros group and the con group, wherein an activity or topic could be given to them, wherein some students will talk about the pros of that particular topic, the other students will talk about the cons or the disadvantages of that particular the topic what is being given to them, and accordingly the students can discuss among themselves, exchange the perspectives, thereby reflect and learn from each other. So these are few of the activities which can be given to the schoolers, and there are so many such kind of activities. Similarly, for college learners, there can be simulations, the role play activities, brainstorming activities, group discussion activities, creative quizzes, educational trips, field trips, organizing live events, and cultural exchanges, and so many such kind of activities are there which can also develop this kind of reasoning and thinking ability of the students. It can give a practical approach to the students, whereby the student can develop a proper understanding of the topic and apply it in their real lives. At some point of time, most teachers are confronted with the fact that merely giving a student information is no guarantee that it will be internalized in a meaningful way. Thus, through the above mentioned activities, we can understand the relevance of experiential learning as a pedagogy. It helps the educators to sidestep their problem by deploying a student centered approach that empowers participants to take learning into their own hands and apply it in an engaging context. Thus, the role of the teacher should also be of that of a facilitator, the subject expert, the standard setter and evaluator, and ultimately a coach. The main objective of experiential learning in class should be to empower students, to engage them meaningfully, and to help them to compete better with each other and to compete with the problems which life throws upon them. Professor Scott Werdinger has also written in his book, Teaching for Experiential Learning, that students are more excited about learning when they are an active part of the process, be it through scenarios including discussion, group work, or hands on participation. If we successfully use these kinds of learning activities in the class, we will be able to witness their first hand excitement. Imagine a student being taught about cycling without giving him a cycle to drive. Similarly, if we talk about experiential learning, it is not something which we have explored or developed now. It is right from the beginning. When a child is born, the child learns to walk only through experience. He gets up, he crawls, he walks, he falls down, he gets up again, he tries walking again, and thus eventually through his experiences he learns how to walk. So when we talk about experiential learning, it is nothing to be taught, but it is something to be experienced. After all, the demonstrated success of experiential learning suggests that it is not what we teach to the students, but how we teach to the students is what can make a difference. Thank you. Thank you all.